Welcome back to another preview episode of Banditland Boulevard. Trevor Howard here, and across from me, Tony LaMonica, aka Boxhead 98TL. We got Heritage Night, Native American Heritage Night at the KeyBank Center this Friday night. Friday night rivalry between the 0-4 Toronto Rock and the 3-0 Buffalo Bandits. It is going to be a great show. The Bandits look to go and remain undefeated, and the Rock are looking for their first win, a complete opposite of where they were at this point of the season last year. I think they started off 4-5-0 and were undefeated until they played the Bandits. Now it seems like the roles are kind of reversed a little bit. Tony, how are you feeling? I know the Rock are very injured right now, and the Bandits are coming off of a high with obviously another bye week in between because the NLL loves giving the Bandits early bye weeks. But the Bandits coming off a high. Toronto still injured, looking for their first win. How do you feel going into the second home game of the regular season?
Well, right now I feel like it's dangerous for the Toronto Rock coming into a very hot team that has been defending their title since day one of this season, looking like they don't want to lose at all. They want to have that perfect record, but you can't misjudge any given team, especially against a rival like Toronto, especially having still trying to look for their first win, still with the injuries, especially with some of the highlighted guys that are gone, especially like the Captain America Tom Schreiber. That's a huge loss for Toronto.
TD
And
Earling,
TD Erling, yep. And then just where do you go? Who do you
Latrell
call on to
Harris
be
is
the next
hurt.
hero for the Toronto Rock? I don't
Yeah.
see anything happening, but it's just going to be a very long night for even Nick Rose and between the pipes because the fans are going to get loud. It's going to be a near off, sold out crowd. Um, I don't see any hope for Toronto at all. This might be a blowout game for what I know.
While they are getting Challen Rogers back, which is big for them, they also put Mark Matthews on the injury reserve. So in goes one guy, and then
Out
out
goes
goes
another.
another guy. It's almost it's getting to the point. We're only 4 games into the season. Well, it's going to be the fifth for Toronto, but these injuries are already relentless for them. And believe it or
Right.
not, Tony, after this game, Toronto's got to suffer through 13 more of these games where you don't know who's going to be healthy and who's not. The Bandits have a prime opportunity here to put a vulnerable, very vulnerable team away. I mean, they have the chance of going 0-5. And I remember the Georgia Swarm a couple years ago were 0-7. At the end of the year, they tried to make a push, but it was too little too late. They almost made that last spot in the playoffs, but they just got off to a really horrible start and they couldn't rebound from that. I'm thinking Toronto's in the same boat, but a, a lot of their issues are because they don't have enough depth on that team. And that's something that we're really going to talk about in this episode of Banditland Boulevard, this preview episode, game 4 already of this regular season. It's absolutely crazy to even think about. But Tony, I mean, what are we thinking as far as atmosphere? We know physicality between the Bandits and the Rock. I mean, you just came off a game at home where you had 19,070 screaming Bandit fans in a 13-6 blowout. What can we expect with the atmosphere at the KeyBank Center? What
Mm.
also can we expect on the field as far as, the rivalry, the old-time rivalry between the Bandits and the Rock?
Well, first things first, let's talk about the atmosphere. It's going to be hopefully another sellout crowd for the Buffalo Bandit fans to appear for their team and cheer them on and hope to go 4-0 and to really get underneath the skin of Nick Rose and their goaltending and also to really put a burden into their futures because right now with the way that they're looking, because like you just mentioned about the depth of Toronto not being 100% and it's like a seesaw battle for them for their injuries. I don't see anything good news going their way for a long while, and it might be a very rebuilding year for the Toronto Rock. But for the other thing that you mentioned, um, expect a lot of fights.
Yeah,
That's if
couldn't have
that's
said it
the only
better.
way they're going to try to win games.
Yep,
Expect a lot of fights. I mean, you got Brad Cree, you got Billy Hustrauser. I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name.
yep,
You
still.
got those guys who are out to probably headhunt, and you know what? That's what the defense is probably going to have to look out for
You
too.
got Phil
If God
Mazuka,
forbid they
too.
make another run at Vince,
Yeah, you can't forget about Phil the Thrill Mazuka either. I mean, he's always out there, and he plays a very physical game as well. And
sure,
yeah, I think I couldn't have said it better. Expect maybe a fight or two because
I would.
This is, I always tell people, if you want to go to a Bandits game, you want to get the best lacrosse experience, go to a home game against the Toronto Rock. If you like physicality, you like fights, people getting, players getting busted open and ripped jerseys and big hits, big plays, big goals, and big moments, it's definitely the Bandits versus the Rock. And I was thinking the same thing. I remember last time they played the home regular season game against Toronto. It was the St. Patrick's Day game last year. And a
That's
lot
right.
of the time, I mean, it was an exchange back and forth between the Bandits and the Rock. Maybe after the play was over, or the referee's not looking, someone gets slashed in the back of the leg. Somebody gets cross-checked in the back. Somebody gets, maybe their face mask gets grabbed or something. And we always see that. We tend to see that behind the play. I think the referees definitely are going to have their work cut out for them as far as sorting out penalties and calling, sending players to the sin bin on this Friday night. But this is why rivalries are the best in sports. And I, Toronto versus Buffalo. Look at the NHL and you look at the NLL. Toronto and Buffalo, those are two major hardcore rivalries, and they always bring a good show, especially in the KeyBank Center, where you're going to get 19,000 Bandit fans. But when the Toronto Maple Leafs are in town, you probably get 11,000 Leaf fans at least in that building. Toronto versus Buffalo is always a phenomenal rivalry to follow, and it's. I don't think it's going to fall short of any expectations. It's going to be a back and forth game. Something about that 0-4 record, Tony, makes me a little bit nervous because I know they're going to be looking for their first win. And how good would it be for the Toronto Rock to get their first win against their rivals in the Buffalo Bandits? But let's be honest here, Tony. We talked about
Mhm.
this a little bit before. The depth on the Toronto Rock. I hate blaming injuries as a sports fan. Hate it. I hate blaming injuries. It's a lazy cop out. This isn't the NFL where your quarterback in week 1 tears his ACL and you have to rely on a backup to carry the rest of the way. I will give it to you there. That's a little bit different. NFL is a little bit different. But when you're talking about basketball, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, your team I hate hearing from fan bases, we're so injured. That's why we suck. We're so injured. It shows that you don't have enough depth and you don't have a strong enough culture in that locker room. The thing about the Bandits, they never started off 0-4. Remember all those injuries a couple years ago, Tony, in the
Yep.
2023 season, where Byrne was never playing, Fraser was
Mhm.
never playing, Kluche was never playing, because they were all injured. They all had long-term injuries, and it was Dane Smith and Dalton Solver and Ian McKay scoring all the goals for the Bandits.
Yep.
And because they had depth. Their GM wasn't just paying the big superstars like your Tom Schreibers, your Mark Matthews, your Chris Boucher's, all these money. Because when you develop these depth players, you can afford to lose a couple different players. A
Mhm.
couple of your stars is what I'm trying to say. And the Bandits were the epitome of that. I mean, I would think in the 2023 season, the Bandits lost every one of their stars except for number 92. I think everyone suffered some sort of injury except for Dane Smith. And what did they go? 14-4 and lost one game in the playoffs and won their first title in 15 years. All over Twitter, I've been seeing the Toronto Rock stink because they're injured. It's a lazy cop out excuse, I think, honestly. It shows that their GM is more focused on the spotlight players, and he's sort of overlooking the depth kind of players, like your Kyle Buchanans, your Tehoka Nanakokes, your Clay Scanlons, your Chris Kluches, guys, anyone that's really not Dane, Josh, and Chase, right?
Mhm.
Those are your three. That's the hat trick right there. Everyone else you can look at as a superstar in their own right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I said this on the show last week that there are no true secondary scorers on this team because they're all superstars. But
Right.
when you think of your highlighted players, and if you're the Toronto Rock head coach and you're highlighting names on the roster, on the Bandits roster, who are you highlighting? Dane, Josh, Chase, probably, right?
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
opens up opportunities for Tehoka Nanticoke, for Clay Scanlon, for Chris Kluche, for all those other depth players. Ian McKay, who by the grace of God leads the Bandits in goals on the year
Mhm.
right now with 8. It's definitely something. This is a game, and my point of this is the Bandits can really throw a wet blanket on the picnic that is the 2025 Toronto Rock season. They already got off to an 0-4 start. I think if they start off 0-5, despite the injury narrative that's going around,
Mhm.
and the Bandits can really put the final nail in that coffin on the year. I think if the Rock start off 0-5 and lose to all these teams, you're losing all these head-to-head tiebreakers, I think their season's done. And the Bandits know that. I think they're licking at their chops, looking at the Toronto Rock being in a very vulnerable position, saying, guys, if we win, we don't have to see them in the playoffs. We don't have to. We can end their season right now. Tony, what do you think?
Well, you know what? Like you said, I'm going to take your comment about licking their chops. It's like seeing the last scraps of food on the plate, and the Bandits are looking at it and going, if we finish our meal, we don't have to deal with this no more. So that's how you're basically saying when we don't have to see the Toronto Rock in the playoffs for the first time in God knows how many years. I mean, look at the previous 3 seasons. We've faced the Toronto Rock. We didn't have a problem beating them, but it's like, you know what? Maybe somebody else is going to step up and clear the void of them. And maybe Toronto needs to gather their thoughts, collect their narratives, and and like you said, not to have that kind of like excuse of saying, "Well, our top guys are hurt and whatever, we can't really play well as one." No, guys, you're missing the whole point. Like you said with about the depth, you have great depth. Nothing can go wrong.
Right.
That means the next person in line you can trust to step up. The Bandits have it. You don't. So what could you say about that? Why don't you take a good playbook out of us and say maybe we should learn from them and grow as to become better? But you choose not to. And like you stated, Trevor, is that they're looking only to the superstars on the team rather than mesh and mix to have a complete smooth team where they can actually do very well as one, not as individuals. They're thinking as who's going to be the next superstar. I'm going to be better than you. Why are you fighting against yourselves? You shouldn't be doing that. You
Yeah,
should be
and
thinking, okay, Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, they take the wheel. We're the ones making sure in the tank, if we got to start shooting somebody, we're the ones pulling the trigger and making sure they're still going forward. So as long as everyone's working as one as a team, you can't be beat. You cannot be destroyed. And the fact that Toronto has not still to this day learned the little bit of pieces to fix their puzzle, you're not going to go anywhere if you don't find that little extra spark.
no, and it really blows my mind after heartbreaking playoff loss that they have,
What
they
does that tell
still
you?
they still refuse to go after those secondary guys. And
I agree.
that explains why they keep going through this cycle of heartbreaking playoff loss,
Yep.
heartbreaking playoff series, because they're not making the necessary adjustments. And the coaching really isn't helping either. Their game plan, I went to Hamilton last year. I went to the home game against the Rock last year. Their
Yep.
game plan, I don't even have to be in that locker room to know what their game plan is. And it's been this way for years. Get it to Tom Schreiber, get it to Chris Boucher, and let them shoot. If you can cover those guys, which the Bandits defense does a lot, they're not winning. They don't even come close half the time. And
Nope.
they can have the best roster on paper. Last year, they went what? 15-3. They got swept by the Bandits and lost to San Diego. Yeah, they went 15-3 last year. Got swept in the playoffs. I don't know why. Because the Bandits limited Tom Schreiber. They limited Chris Boucher. They made Mark Matthews look like the 42-year-old that he is. He wasn't scoring anything in the playoffs against the Bandits. And when you limit those guys, you have to rely on Latrell Harris, Tyler Hendricks, Billy Hostrauser, Josh Jubinville, Brad Cree. It's just not going to work. It's
Mm-mm.
really not going to work. And that's why I think the Bandits have a phenomenal shot at absolutely blowing these guys out of the water.
But don't ever take them lightly.
No, you can't. I mean, the thing that scares me, I'd rather have the Rock be 1-4 than 0-4. It's the 0 wins that
I agree.
that might be motivation in itself for the Toronto Rock to really step up for this game because hey, we can get our first win against our rivals. Wouldn't that be sweet? I bet you that's probably what they're thinking. But on the other hand, the Bandits are thinking we can say lights out to these guys and their hopes of making the playoffs just 5 games into the year and then make them suffer their way through 13 more games of the regular season and
That would
make
be
it a
sick.
really long season for those guys. But deep down, I don't really think Johnny T's thinking of those things. He's really just thinking about the X's and O's, and he knows how to beat the Toronto Rock. He's had plenty years of experience playing against them, and he's got a phenomenal coaching record against the Toronto Rock as well. So I mean, I want to say that I'm not worried, but I'm looking more forward to the actual in-game experience, the physicality, more than predicting the outcome is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. And with the way that our defense has been playing so far for their first 3 games, especially only against 2 teams, if they keep that lockdown mode and keep Vince protected as much as they have been, I don't see this team losing any game anytime soon unless somebody breaks the wall of our defense. But other than that, it's Paul Dawson's having a good year so far. Matt
Priolo's looking
Spanger coming back
phenomenal.
after
Yep.
injury. You know, Steve
Pre.
Priolo is doing what he does best, and he leads the defense and does great things with them. You know, with Justin Martin, Dylan Robinson, and it's just gets
Ian
with
McKay's very good
McLeese.
defensively
It's
too.
just
Yep.
unreal. It's
Yeah.
just unreal.
No, it really is. And I think the defense, if there were a game to step up, it's against the Rock. They know
Yeah,
this they know that this rivalry means a lot to them and to the
sure.
fans. And when you're in the electric KeyBank Center during a Bandits game against your division rival, or not even former division rival, when you're up against your arch rival in the present day, you know, Banditland, you're going to have 19,000 plus backing you up. So that's going to be like a sixth man on the field for those guys. And I'm feeling good about this one, Tony. I really
I do.
am. But if you want to break down some of the players to watch,
Sure.
who are some of the players to watch for the visiting Toronto Rock side of things? I know we mentioned a lot of their injuries. It's not an excuse, but we have a lot of injuries on that side. I got a couple players that come to mind, Tony, if you don't mind me starting.
No,
Uh,
please do.
one of those guys, I mean, this website isn't updated because Mark Matthews is now on the injury reserve, but coming back from the IR, Challen Rogers. Not
Yep.
only is he a transition, but he could also score. And he's probably, I don't, don't hold me to it, but I think he's probably filling in for TD Earling in the faceoff dot as well. I think he's probably the next man up.
Well, if he decides to be the next Fogo guy for the time being until he does come back, I mean, he's going to have a hard time going up against Connor Farrell, who's been really legit in the faceoff dot this year. An impressive 63%, which is 49 victories over 78 faceoffs. I mean, how much more can you ask from the milkman himself?
And Tony, I
It's
think anything,
unbelievable how well he's played.
no, it really is. And I think anything 45 and above is considered good.
Oh, God,
63
yeah.
is considered phenomenal.
It is beautiful. How can you not say yes to that?
Very good.
But like you said about Mr. Rogers, it's not going to be the neighborhood he wants to come into town. I'll tell you
Hell
that right
no.
now. But
Hell no.
they are going to look to him a lot for shooting. And you know what? If the Bandits can withhold him and another player, formerly Bandit, known as Corey Small,
Yep.
you keep that lefty in check. I think their offense is going to be pretty shaky. But I don't know. You got to have the secondary to do it, and they don't have it like the Bandits do.
Yeah, Corey Small is one of those players that gives me nightmares. He is a bandit killer, former bandit and a bandit killer. Every time he plays against the Bandits, it's usually a hat trick or 4 goals, maybe 5 goals.
Which is
But
surprising.
it's very surprising. But I mean, it's sort of like a homecoming for him. He loves the atmosphere. He still he still talks to a lot of the current players on the team. I know him and Dane Smith are still really good friends. It's just an
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere that he loves and he enjoys playing in, and that's where he plays his best lacrosse. Looking at a couple other players, Dan Craig, he might be considered
Mm-hmm.
a secondary guy that might be sneaking under the radar. A forward, 6'1", 180, more so considered a power forward than anything else. And who can forget about Chris Boucher, right? I mean, he's probably the number one weapon on that team right now that's actually still healthy.
Yes. I mean, you got to understand when between both Small and Bushi, I mean, you could pick either one who's going to be like a natural hat trick per game, easy, no problems with that. But like I said before, is that with our defense, the way we play, if we keep them in check and we stick to our game plan, I don't see them getting more than 2 each.
Yeah,
Honestly, I mean that's
I
the way I think.
we talk about limiting, right? 2 goals would be
Oh
considered
yeah.
limiting those players. 2 goals for sure. Anything above 3, not so much.
Hmm.
Shutting them down, obviously, is holding them to a goose egg and holding them to 0. And I mean,
Right.
don't get me wrong, that's the all-time goal, but it just doesn't happen, in box lacrosse. Sometimes the ball
Not
just goes
often
in the
either.
net. Yeah. So, I mean, that's unlikely. Now here comes the fun part, Tony. We got to watch who are your key players to watch for your Buffalo Bandits.
Well, you got to give the kid where he's hot and keep him hot. Number 81 is Clay Scanlon. If he's been doing what he's been told, like Johnny T has taught him, you know what? I see another couple goal night for this kid. This kid's playing like he knows what he's doing out there, especially with coming into his first year. proven that he could play, not like Emerson Clark. But the fact
Don't tell
is,
him that.
he's producing. That's what I mean by coming in, knowing how to play lacrosse and producing points. When you do that as coming in as a rookie, like Tahoka did on his first year, I said it before and I'll say it again. This kid gets 50 to 60 points in his first opening season. That shows promise to me in the near future for him to be as a starter
And he's up
forever.
in the
Like not
votes.
sitting down forever. And that's
He's
one of
up
my
in the
go-to
votes for
guys.
rookie of the year too. He has to be if he gets 50 points. He has to be up there for rookie of the year too. Has to
God,
be.
yeah, absolutely.
Just as long as a lot of those points are in fact goals, I think that would be that would only help out his case even more. My number one player to watch, obviously, actually not really obviously to all the casual viewers out there, but the ones who really dissect and digest Bandits lacrosse like we do, stay hot number 4. The leader in goals
Yes.
for the Bandits right now, Ian McKay. I want to see what he can do against the Toronto Rock and keep up his goal scoring ways. 8 goals. I want to see if this goal scoring streak can continue for him. He had a monster night in Ottawa, had a great game against Rochester. Actually, 2 great games against Rochester. And
Yep.
now he's facing against Toronto at home in front of 19,000 strong. I don't see this momentum slipping away. I think Ian McKay is due for a big night.
Yeah, especially with how he did when we had to go travel to Toronto for the game one on the 12-4 blowout. Ian McKay was a big part of that game. And you know what? He's found a weakness in Nick Rose. He's found a weakness in their defense. And it's not just because of his offensive ability, it's his fact that his transition and his defense skills help him lead the way for this Bandits team. And that's huge to bring up Ian McKay because he just knows how to find a way to sneak in, be like the Thurman Thomas of the Buffalo Bills, and just squeeze in and knowing how to score goals
Yep.
and really being a big part of the team. And you know what? Ian McKay, I've got a feeling he might have a 4 or 5 point night Friday night.
Oh, I could see it. Yeah. I
I
mean,
can see it.
I don't think that would really surprise anyone. What about this is an outrageous stat. This is Barry Bonds ML Triple Play Baseball 2001 for the PlayStation 1 right here stats. 3 games played, 28 points. Those are video game numbers. Watch out for 92. And I think with that, you got to tie them both at the hip. Watch 22 as well. He's got
Mm-hmm.
26 points in 3 games. So
Yep.
you got to look at the tag team, the Dane and Josh show, Dane's World, whatever you want to call these two, Dane Generation X, whatever you want to
I
call
like
these
that.
two.
That was actually creative. I love it.
Right off the
I love
dome,
it.
too. I kind of just came up with that one.
That was
But
pretty good. I like that one.
combine their points together, they're over 50 points, and we're talking 3 games into the season. These are the 2 guys that led the league in points back to back, 1-2, Dane Josh. And it's been that
Yeah.
way since the pandemic, since we got out of the COVID break. Dan and Josh leading the league in points, whether it's goals, assists, or overall points. They're always up there, at least in the top 3, and it continues this year. Dane 7 goals, 21 helpers with 28 points. Josh Byrne 6 goals, 20 apples, 26 points. Very good numbers from these two.
Yeah, let me tell you, these two have been a dangerous threat to all teams in the National Lacrosse League. If, like you said before, when we lost Josh Byrne, Dane Smith had to be the one to be like, all right, guys, who's going to be my next step up partner? And it was a blessing to see that everybody wanted to contribute even more. It was Tahoka, Kyle, Chase, you name it. It was a
Brad
beautiful. It was
Spanger.
beautiful to see
Yep.
how good. Yeah, when we had Brad McCauley too at the time, it was just amazing
God,
how well these
he was
guys just
potting
said,
in
"I'd love
goals.
to be the next guy. I'd love to be the
Yeah.
next tag team partner with Dane Smith." And you just hit the nail in the coffin on that one because you're like knowing how these two guys together is so good to watch every time they're set foot in the
It's must
floor.
see TV.
That's huge, dude. Seriously.
Dude, it's must see TV. And why not stay
Mhm.
with this guy who contemplated retirement in the offseason? Kyle Buchanan is 3rd for the team in points. He has 11 points, 6 goals, 5 assists, and also a power play goal. So Kyle Buchanan, he's definitely a player to watch for me, and probably for you too as well, Tony. And just looking at the way that this guy scores, the way that this guy still plays at 36 years old, Kyle Buchanan is such a good player, and he should have a good night against Nick Rose. He's seen him a lot in his long tenure in the National Lacrosse League.
Yeah, Kyle has been definitely one of those go-to shooters, especially against Nick Rose, who's the more of the stand-up type goaltender. He likes to shoot low. He likes to he likes to create plays. He likes to get to the loose balls as much as possible. He makes the offense stay on that floor as much as he can, and he contributes to those where most guys don't get themselves involved for them battles into boards and just to get to the loose balls. He is one of those go-to guys, and I'm so proud that I can say this once again. I am so happy he re-signed with the Bandits for another season,
Yes. Aren't
and
we
I
all?
am glad he is a part of this team still, and he has definitely contributed to keep this offense flowing as good as they're doing. He's like that little smooth operator that you want to have on your team, and that's exactly why I'm glad Kyle Buchanan re-signed.
And I mean, we can obviously say Matt Vince. I hope he's good. I know he
Oh,
took a
I
bit of a
believe
he took a bit of a spill at the end of the game against the Nighthawks, but I think he seems fine.
he's
I will
fine.
say this about injuries. I haven't seen an update. This is as of Wednesday, January 8th. We're recording this. I haven't seen
Mhm.
an update at all about Chris Kluche. So I
Right.
would not hold your breath on a Chris Kluche return this week. If he does, fantastic. That'd be
Mhm.
awesome. But I would think that he probably misses this week, and we get to see like you said, a player to watch for you, a full game of Clay Scanlon in
Yep.
Chris Kluche's spot.
Yeah, Clay Scanlon is going to be one of those guys. I'm glad that he's stepping up and being the next, unsung hero, if we want to particularly call it as. But the fact is that number 81 has got a big shoes to fill, especially with Chris Kluche's shot for the left-hander, especially how he can get to those side goals and snipe at the post. But Clay makes his own game up too. And the fact that he likes to create plays and score and finally gets, I was hoping he was going to score in his first debut game, but he didn't. But he was all over the place. He was making room for everyone else to get their clear shots. He was uh, fighting for them loose balls. He was getting, assists on a couple games. And the fact is, I was actually surprised. He should really, as of right now, he has 4 total points. But realistically, if they did the secondary assists, he would be at 7 or 8 right now with the apples
Easily.
that he had only in his first game. And that's how creative this kid's going to be. He's going to be one of those guys that, hey, I want to become a starter just like Dane and Josh is. And I love that about somebody is that they have the anticipation and the determination to really be the next guy up. Say, like, God forbid they get hurt, go look to
Oh,
81.
perfect role for him. He's the perfect plug and play guy at either forward or transition, I think,
I
for a guy
agree.
like Clay Scanlon. And it's really impressive because this is a player I really didn't know much about going into the year. And then all of a sudden he plays this game in Ottawa. I'm like, okay, this kid's pretty good. And then he scores twice against the Nighthawks. And I'm like, wow, this kid does have some serious potential.
Yes, he
Um,
does.
that's big, big. And I think what should be really scary to the Toronto Rock, the Bandits have,
I wouldn't.
I mean, they've only played 3 games, but the Bandits have never finished a game in a close fashion. They won by 8 in the first game, they won by
Yep.
11 in their second game, and they won by 7 in their third game.
Hmm.
Toronto really has the ability to just tuck their tail between their legs and walk out of the arena coming off a beating of epic proportions. Because the Bandits aren't holding it back against anyone. We've seen that through 3 games this year. They don't care if you're undefeated. They don't care if you're winless. They're gonna beat you around until the point to where you tap out and where you, yeah, like I said before, tuck your tail between your legs, walk through that locker room, and just get ready for the next one. That should be really scary, Tony. And that goes into my keys to the game. Be
Sure.
relentless. Be relentless. Shoot from everywhere. The Bandits, I feel like I don't even really need to say this because the Bandits do it against Nick Rose regardless. Every time they play the Rock, they get 60 plus shots on net, it seems like.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't even think I really need to say this either, Tony, for another key to the game. Shoot low on Nick Rose because he's been in the league for how freaking long and he's still never adjusted to the low shot. Shoot
Nope.
low. Shoot low on Nick Rose. He will never save it.
Yeah, especially on each corner of his feet. Every time you aim for a post, make sure you're aiming right for his feet. The only thing I could see him actually improving is his footwork, trying to go side to side like a goaltender in a bubble hockey. But other than that,
He's gonna have to
he really
against
doesn't
this
go
team.
down. That's the thing.
Nope.
That's the thing I can't understand. But also, and we preach this every episode, stay out of the box as
Yep.
best you can because that's the way they're going to try to trap you into this game. Is that you got to bite your tongue, bite your lip, something to not add to the point where they're going to be like on a 5-on-3, 5-on-4 as much as possible. But stay out of the box, guys. That's
They
all
are
I can
going to
say.
bait you at the end of the play, maybe behind the play.
Always, the fish line's already out.
The referees, they always get the retaliator. They rarely get the instigator. They always get the retaliator. So shut your mouth, run to the bench, go
That's all I
put
can do.
another goal up on the board and hurt them where it hurts them the most.
Exactly.
And I think
Couldn't
if
agree
you're
more.
gonna, why don't you show up and play as physical as possible? And the Bandits have
Beat
been
them
doing
up.
this all season long. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Go in there. I don't know, maybe a Priolo or maybe an Ian McKay goes in there and lays a big check on Brad Cree.
That
I'm
would be
talking
sick.
right out of the gate. Show them that you're coming into our house. You got 19,000 people wearing orange. You're not going to stand us up. I don't care if you're winless. I don't care if you are undefeated. If you're coming into this house, it better be the house of horrors for you. And by the time you leave the arena, your ears better be ringing because it's going to be so loud in that arena. At least it does for me when I go there. I mean, it's never if I walk out of a Bandits game and my ears aren't ringing, it's a failure. And that never happens. So it's always a success when I go there. I can only imagine what it's like being a player on the visiting team, especially a player for Toronto. It's going to be loud for the Bandits. Just be physical and get in their face. Just make sure that they're second guessing every single move that they make. And how do you begin to do that? You start it by laying the boom on those guys, at least in the first quarter. Maybe kickstart the game with a quick goal, something like that. We could talk about a bunch of different keys to win. But the
Sure.
point is, maybe if I want to quote Herb Brooks here, the Rock will play the Bandits will play the Rock 10 times. The Bandits will win 9 out of 10. They might win 9. The Rock probably 1 out of 10. Honestly, every 10 games they play the Bandits know how to play these guys. They're in a very vulnerable position.
Mhm.
The Bandits are in prime position to absolutely kick these guys down the mountain, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, the way the Bandits should be doing is just stick to the plan. You guys are maintaining the opponents under 10 goals, which is very impressive for the defense and goaltending. You're scoring 10 plus goals per game. Guys, there shouldn't really be an excuse
You're
or,
also consistently holding teams to under 10 goals too.
yeah, which that's going to help you win games, but don't take these guys lightly at all. Yes, they're your rival. Yes, they're a team that could be trap wise, like you may say, Trev.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it's
Yep.
like put a foot in their ass. That's basically what I want to say. Just
Yeah,
bury
pretty
them.
much.
It's like saying the one thing my grandfather used to tell me. He goes, "Son, I don't know if you're trying to start a fight with me, but I've kicked so much ass, my feet stink." Okay, let's just say that. Let's
The
just say
Bandits can
that.
relate to that,
But
I think.
all I gotta say is, don't give them an inch because they'll go everywhere for them to go right. So you do not want to give them any type of chance, but to bury them where they stand.
Well,
You know
and,
what?
and
We might as well put a gravestone right in Banditland saying, "Here lies Toronto Rock."
I was gonna say, don't give any Bandit fans any ideas because they will definitely
Oh,
bring them to the
probably.
arena. Probably, I would think. But the Rock are probably using Game 2 highlights as bulletin board material. Have you thought of that when they
I
were up
love it.
8-4 in the fourth quarter when they were up 8-4 in the playoffs and the Bandits rip 6 unanswered goals and win that game
Hmm.
10-8? There's a possibility there that they could be using that as bulletin board material and they don't want history to repeat itself. Here's the
Right.
thing about the Toronto Rock this year. Honestly, we always say this, don't take any team lightly.
That's
I
right.
think something will have to go drastically wrong for this Bandits team to be down 8-4 to that Toronto Rock team in the fourth quarter to begin with. But if they want to use that as motivation, you know, you do you, you know, go fight wind. You be you. If you want to use that as bulletin board material, I personally wouldn't if I was a coach. Yay, rah, go fight wind. Good luck to you on your future endeavors. But I really think Toronto, they're either extremely motivated going into this game, or they're like, oh God, dear Lord, we are 0-4 and we have to play the Bandits. And
Yep.
there's really no middle ground there, Tony.
No, they're it's a lot of mixed emotions if you want to say about it. They'll be like, yeah, we could go play in Buffalo this week. Oh crap, we gotta play an undefeated team. Are we gonna get our first win here? Probably not.
The team that we
Um,
haven't beat since April of 2023.
oh my god, has it been that long?
Yeah,
Damn.
that was the game where they put up 18 on us on the road or at when they
Oh,
were in
that's right.
Hamilton. Yeah, that was kind of a weird
I
game.
completely forgot about that blowout. They beat us bad in Toronto.
Yeah, that was the last victory they got against the Bandits, and we're coming up on 2 calendar years since then. So it's yeah. If
How
they
about
don't
this
want
for a
history to
treat?
repeat
Why don't
itself,
you replay that game to motivate us to be like, we're not going to take this shit?
honestly, I think Johnny T could just fire up the fourth quarter highlights of game 2 and be like, "Can we
I
do this
would.
again? Can we do this again? Except do this in the first quarter and put them
Yeah.
away at halftime?" Yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's what he's gonna. That's probably what it is. Or the
That'd be
Bandits,
smart. That'd be smart.
or the Bandits are just gonna walk into this game and be like, "Oh, it's our little brother. Let's push him down again." Yeah, it's
Hmm.
time to beat the little brother again. It's probably what
I
it
would
is.
say so. That would
But
be
I
probably the
think
best thing
Tony,
to do. What's that?
I think that brings us to our world famous score
Oh, the score
predictions.
time. Yes.
Wow. World famous score predictions. KeyBank Center,
Oh,
Native American Heritage Night. You know it's going to be
yep.
close to a sellout crowd. I know fans really go above and beyond for that kind of night. It's definitely one of my favorite nights at the KeyBank Center for the Bandit season, and I know that everyone brings the heat there. So you're going to have a raucous crowd, Bandit rock. It's going to be great. I think the Bandits are going to win this game 14-8.
Well, another one to keep under 10. I'm going to think a little bit differently this time. I usually say, um, what did I said so far this whole year? I've said we're going to be close some games.
Well, don't be
Technically
yeah,
speaking, did not expect blowouts for the first three. But to be realistic and to kind of like come down to earth a little bit, because it is going to be, like you may say, a trap game.
could be.
But I'm going to say Buffalo Bandits win, but it's a statement game in my view. So I'll say Bandits win 15-10.
15-10. All right. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty reasonable. You know what? The only thing that matters is the whatever
The
team
victory.
gets the W. The only team that
That's
I don't
right.
care how you get it done, just go 4-0 and then yeah, like I said before, throw a wet blanket on the garbage season that is the 2025 Toronto Rock. But yeah, that would be great. So if not only do you get the win, but you likely step on the throat of your arch rival. I think these are the perfect scenarios where the Bandits just go into this game completely motivated and nothing's really going to get into their way. But we will find out, I guess, on Friday, Tony. It's going to be a great one. KeyBank Center, 7:30 face-off, Native American Heritage Night, Friday, January 10th. Big game coming up. It's going to be great. I love watching the Toronto Rock and the Bandits. It's always must-see TV. If they put it on pay-per-view, I'd pay $39.95 for it all day long. But Tony, with that said, I got a 14-8 victory. You got 15-10 victory. We're picking the Bandits because of course we are. It's time to shout out our sponsors.
Yes, sir. We'd like to thank our main sponsor at Mitchell's Tavern, located at 734 Sheridan Drive up in Tonawanda. If you guys haven't tried it yet, please mention Banditland Boulevard, which is Trevor Hauer over there, myself, Tony LaMonica. Tell them that we sent you, and I promise you guys, you'll have great food, amazing service. You will never be disappointed from them. Also, we'd like to thank Herney's Journeys for your next big adventure. Please contact Suzanne Pike and Suzanne Pike at Herney'sJourneys.com. Let her book your next big adventure. Also, we'd like to thank those who are watching us live now as we speak on
Yes.
YouTube. Give us that like, subscribe, follow us on the channel, guys. And if you guys want to partake in our show, please message us. Let us know. You can be a part of this too and put your input about the Buffalo Bandits lacrosse. Also, we'd like to thank those who listen to us on every device known to man on Spotify. Give us that 5-star rating. Let us know how we do and give us that chance to talk about nothing but Buffalo Bandits lacrosse.
Couldn't have said it any better, Tony. Bandit Rock. Can't wait. Friday night under the lights. Friday night rivalry on Native American Heritage Night. It's going to be awesome. I think though, we can't forget to end our show with our 3 most famous words. I know Chris Swenson says these all the time, and he does it the best, but we try to follow in his footsteps at the end of every single show, win or lose. It doesn't even matter. What are those 3 words, Tony?
Let's do it just like the chant we do at the games. Ready? We're going to
Yep.
do this exactly like they do.
Okay.
Like Swenny does. Ready?
Let's do it. Yep.
Ready? 1,
Yep.
2,
2,
3.
3.
Let's go, Bandits!
Bandits.
Let's go!
Let's go.